It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant Prime.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live on this Monday afternoon. It's all brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. I am John Schmeelk. He is Paul Dottino, coming to you live from our podcast studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. Mr. Dottino, how was your weekend?
Not too bad, John, although the rain today kind of puts a little dampen on everything's right.
Yeah, good use of rain and dampening. I'm not sure if that was on purpose, but well done. So this is the last week of OTAs. They are 4 this week. Today,
Yes.
Tomorrow, Thursday and Friday. Wednesday's the off day.
Mm-hmm.
And then tomorrow they will have they're down to 2 minicamp practices now. They used to officially announce 3, but the last one was always a fake minicamp practice. Now they've just announced they're going to do 2, and that's what they're going to do. So that's what's going on next week. And then we are kind of in the clear until the 3rd or 4th week of July. We don't quite know when training camp's going to start yet,
Right.
but we're thinking sometime around July 23rd, somewhere in that area is kind of what we're thinking.
How true that is.
So that's where we're at, folks. Today we're going to have a fun show. We are going to do our X Factors for the Giants season. Now, this is not who the Giants' best players are. This is not who the Giants can least afford to lose. We will have that on a show a little bit later on this offseason. You know, X Factors, and I actually texted Paul the definition of an X Factor, so we'd be on the same page. So I might as well read that now, just so everyone's on the same page, right? So, X Factor is defined as, and this was, thank you, Google, a variable in a given situation that could have the most significant impact on the outcome.
Yes.
So the key word there is variable. So if something's kind of certain, then Dexter Lawrence is the X Factor. Well, we know Dexter Lawrence is going to be great. So he would not qualify as an X Factor.
No.
But guys that maybe we have some questions about could qualify as a potential X Factor this year. So we'll get to that in a second. Real quick, I want to talk about what happened at OTAs today before we get to those X Factors. I say this with fairly high level of confidence, Paul, that this was the best the offense has looked so far in the spring. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it was happening in tight quarters in the tight red zone where sometimes the offense can struggle to get things going because you don't have a full field to work with, I thought it was pretty impressive. Started in 7-on-7. Russell Wilson, 4 straight touchdown passes to start the day. Jameis Winston, during one of the team periods, had 3 straight touchdown throws at one point. Jackson Dart had a trio of touchdown throws. So a lot of good play from the different quarterbacks, some good throws, and you can start to see the timing of these quarterbacks with the wide receivers start to click. And the pass that I did for me was a Jameis Winston pass. He had Montrell Washington on a little out route right near the sideline. He threw the pass before Washington came out of his break, put it right on the sideline so Washington could drag his back foot in away from the defender. And it was the type of precision that I don't think you see early in spring because the quarterbacks aren't used to the offense, they're not used to the wide receivers yet. But I really thought you saw it start to click today in the red zone with the offense.
Yeah, John, I would say this. Probably a good portion of the touchdown passes, and it has to be when you're in close quarters. And by the way, this was inside the field house.
Yes, because of the rain today.
Very clear.
Good point.
I'd say a good portion, and I didn't count them up, it was probably at least half of them, were tightrope throws. We're talking about darts, laser beams, things that had to have zip on them. Okay, they weren't just like, dumping them in there. There were a few, that were in the corner that they had to loop around. Okay, fine. I'm talking about a lot of throws that were just zipped right to where they had to be. Those throws, you don't have margin for error on those throws. They're either right there or they're not. It's a completion or it's not. You've got to put those kinds of passes right on the money. And the quarterbacks did a really good job with it today.
Yeah, I thought they did too. Abdul Carter got into the backfield a couple times for what could have been sacks. Brian Burns got into the backfield for a couple times for what could have been sacks. Cordell Flott had an interception on the left side of the field where he kind of dropped back into zone and got his hands up to pick off a ball. Belton had a pick, but I got called back because of a penalty.
Right.
So that does not count. I thought I was just happy to see the offense look like they were starting to pick up some timing with the wide receivers and the quarterbacks in those tight red zone areas.
No question. Theo Johnson made a couple of nice grabs in traffic.
3 touchdown catches for him by my count. Slayton had one. Robinson had one. Gray had a couple. Tracy had one. And then 3 of the undrafted rookie free agents had one. So
I mentioned Johnson in particular, though.
Little John Humphrey had 2. Sorry.
Yes, that's all right. I mentioned Johnson in particular because we've had people talk about how Russell Wilson throughout his career has never been a guy who really looks for the tight end a whole lot.
Seattle also never really had any great tight ends either, which is part of it.
Well, and it's easy to say that because that's a chicken and the egg thing. If the quarterback doesn't feed them a lot in clutch situations, well, we're not going to think of them as being better players.
They also never went anywhere else and became really good.
That's also accurate. But so it's very intriguing to me to see that the tight ends do so well with Wilson at the controls. And
he has 2 of those throws to Johnson.
Yes, and that's my point. He's not been shy about looking for Theo Johnson.
And it makes sense, though, too, right? Johnson's 6'6". He's tall.
Yeah.
Wilson is going to probably try to target bigger wide receivers, especially over the middle. It's easier for him to see those guys as they go out to run their routes. So I'm with you. I thought it was good to see. But I thought they also spread the ball around today. It wasn't just one guy. So, and then to end practice, after the first four periods were in tight red zone, mostly 10 yards and in, though they had a couple penalties which pushed them outside of that. They ran some situational stuff where, first of all, Jackson Orr practiced kneeling the ball down once. I don't know if he might not have ever done that under center because of running shotgun in college.
That's a good question.
So I don't think it was a surprise that the dart was the one that ran the fake kneel, ran the kneel down. So that was interesting. And then they ended practice. The last team period was the offense trying to get out of the shadow of their own end zone. You had a potential sack from Brian Burns on one play, which might have been a safety. But 2 plays were fun during that period. One, and by the way, Jameis Winston runs really good play action. Like, he exaggerates the fake handoff, tucks in. I think his mechanics on play action is really, really strong. But he play action boots it, and there was nobody on the left side of the field.
And he took off like a race car.
He looked like Tom Cruise in a Mission Impossible movie. The arms were pumping. The legs were up.
He was going.
He was running so hard. And the entire offense on the sideline, he was running towards the offense on the sideline. Yes. They were into it. They thought it was great. Everyone was excited. And then everyone got even more excited on the final play. A really tough catch from Dalen Combre on a nice pass by Tommy DeVito down the right sideline. I'm not sure it would have went for a touchdown. I think he would have got tracked down before he got there. But a really tough catch and a good play to end practice. And the whole offense goes charging down the field. They celebrate with Combre in the end zone. It was a lot of fun.
It's about a 40-yard bomb. He jumped over Fortune to go up and get it, which was just a great athletic play. And you're right, John. The entire team was in celebration. I suspect, I don't know this. We didn't talk to Coach. I suspect it looked like they might have ended practice a few minutes early. I wonder if Dable told them, if you hit this, I'll call an end to practice.
Now, we probably have not talked about Dalen Combre much. So just so fans understand him, he is one of the more, quite frankly, unique players that I've ever seen a team carry into their roster, even as an undrafted rookie free agent. So he's a receiver.
Yes.
And has 10 career college catches.
Yeah.
For 123 yards.
I know.
He's here because he's a special teams ace. We've seen him do a lot of different things on special teams. I don't think I'm allowed to tell the specific roles.
I don't think you can go any further than that.
Needless to say, he's been in a lot of different spots. I will leave it at that. And if you can ever get anything out of him as a wide receiver, then I think you feel pretty good about it. But I just thought it was, for fans that weren't familiar with him as a player, he went to Louisiana, by the way. He was a Raging Cajun. So just something to note at the end of practice there.
Yeah, strictly based on college resume, he would have the thinnest resume of anybody in camp.
Yeah, in terms of Paul.
In terms of production.
I have never seen the Giants have a wide receiver in camp that had that little college production.
I know. It's,
But again, he's not here to be the receiver. He's here to be a special teams player. But I just thought it was interesting to bring up for fans that maybe might not be familiar with him. Okay, So now let's get to our X factors, Paul. So we're going to each pick 3. We're going to do this draft style where we're going to go back and forth so we don't copy each other. Would you like to go first or would you like me to go first?
Doesn't matter. I'll flip a coin if you want. I don't care.
Let me think. The last time we did this, did you? Yeah, why don't we... Do you have a coin on
I
you?
have a coin.
I do not have a coin.
No, but I have my cell phone.
I have an app.
I'll flip that.
No, we're not going to flip the coin. There are coin flipping apps.
Are there really?
Yes, you are not aware of this?
I was not aware. Well, I don't gamble. Not that you do.
You don't gamble on coin flips. What do you
Some
think? You
people
walk
do.
into a casino and you got some guy at a table flipping a quarter? Is that what you think's happening in casinos?
People gamble on the Super Bowl coin flick every year.
Okay, well, yeah, that they do. I thought you meant like you go to the some casino and like they have some guy at the table with like a nickel, heads or tails.
There's no table.
House odds!
There's no table
Like-
for that.
right.
Well, you know why? Because the odds are too good in the public's favor. Because it's really 50-50.
Yeah,
the
correct.
casino would never do that.
No, they would never do that unless they have the I'm not the.
They need a fake coin.
Yeah, and that would be very illegal, and they would get into a lot of trouble.
Exactly.
All right, you want heads or tails?
I'll take tails.
Flipping, and it is heads, so I get to go first.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to go with Deontay Banks.
Okay.
He's a Giants first-round pick from 2 years ago. We know the consistency hasn't been where he wanted to be his first 2 years. His second year, I don't think not as good as his first year. Can he be that impact player the Giants need him to be in Shane Bowen's defense? Defense, in a lot of ways, can be guided by the weak link philosophy, right? You could have 9 super players on defense, but if you have 2 guys that other teams can just target relentlessly, it ain't going to help you. So I think we feel all good about Paulson Adebo, right? Drew
Sure.
Phillips, only his second year, but I think we saw enough in his first year, especially around the line of scrimmage, that he's going to be a pretty good player. Can the Giants get good enough play out of that second cornerback spot? And look, if it's not Deontay Banks, then you can put Cordell Flott in this mix. So if you want to put Banks or Flott here, that's fine. I'm going to focus on Banks because he was the first-round pick and he is the most physical talent, right?
And he's a starter.
Correct. He's been the starter the last 2 years.
Right.
So can Banks be a guy? Look, you don't need him to be prime Darrelle Revis, where he's following around the other team's best wide receiver and shutting him down all over the field. Can he stay on his side of the field, cover the guy that's lined up across from him, and not get beat a lot? He doesn't have to be great. Be a league average starting. If he is like the 25th best cornerback in the league this year, I'll take that.
Just don't be a liability.
Be a good starter. Don't commit defensive pass interference penalties. Don't get beat deep. Be where you're supposed to be. Don't make mental mistakes. And look, I still think he has the ability to develop into a shutdown level corner, but I'm not asking that from him this year. Be a good starter. That's all I'm looking for this year. And if he does, that's going to help this Giants defense an awful lot. If he doesn't, it could become a real problem for this defense, which is why he's my number 1 X factor.
Okay, and it makes an awful lot of sense.
Was he on your list?
I did not put him down.
Ooh, I like it. Good.
I did
That means
not
we're going
put
to have
him
different
down.
things. I like that. Good.
Because honestly, like when you said earlier to start this thing, things that are for certain would not qualify. Well, there's not much for certain on this team, so you could really go in about 25 different directions.
I agree with you. Okay.
So
go. Well, you can comment on Banks, and then you can give your number 1.
Well, first of all, as far as Banks is concerned, there's no question. If he's not consistently good enough, consistently functional to where he's not an Achilles heel, the Giants will sign up for that right now.
Like, there were games last year where they had to take him off the field.
He was so up and down.
You can't have that.
No. He was so up and down. They couldn't count on him. They couldn't trust him.
At
times.
Came back, he cut the hair, a little bit more buttened up. Maybe
I haven't had a
he's
chance
ready
to
lock
talk to
in.
him.
Neither have
so
I.
I don't know.
I
But
have not had a
Shane
chance to
Bowen
talk to him
seemed
either.
very pleased with him.
Yes, he
last
did.
week.
He's come in.
All
He's
right.
been very serious. So
Because of the injury factor, and we have seen that every time Andrew Thomas gets hurt, and he consistently seems to be getting hurt, the offensive line tends to slide right downhill like a snowball.
I thought this was almost like too easy, but I can't argue with your logic on it. I
Well,
can't.
the
I can't.
avalanche-
No, I can't argue with the logic.
The
I know.
avalanche of this offensive line seems to start every single time Andrew Thomas goes to the trainer's room. So as much as I would say under normal circumstances, if he had shown standard durability, I would not allow Andrew Thomas to be on the list. I would say I can't pick him.
I'm saving Andrew Thomas for my guys you can't afford to lose show list.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But because injuries and his lack of availability has kind of become a norm for him, and every time it happens, the mud slides downhill. The impact of his getting hurt absolutely devastates this team. It's happened time and time again. So my X factor is, can Andrew Thomas stay healthy, be on the field for at least 16 games or at least 15? I mean, at the bare minimum, 15 to give this offensive line a chance to actually produce.
Paul, I'll be honest with you. If you told me 13 right now, I'd sign up for
it. I would want more than that, but I understand.
I understand, but how many games he's played the last 2 years?
I know. And that's
he hasn't gone to 10, has he?
That's why
the last 2 years.
That's why he's on my list.
Right. No, I'm with you. I can't argue with you. They do not have. I mean, look. I think Joe Shane was pretty clear. He feels good about John Hudson as a guy that can step. Or James Hudson. Sorry, I said John Hudson. James Hudson. As a guy that can step in and do a nice job as your swing tackle. But he ain't Andrew Thomas. You don't want to have to move Illuminor over, which I don't think they would. I think Hudson would just slide into that left tackle spot. I mean, the consequences of an injury like that, we've seen it before.
Yeah.
And it's not just the snowball rolling downhill. The snowball, the gigantic snowball then hits your car. It takes out your mailbox.
Oh. It takes out the whole ski resort.
And then to the bottom, it's so big, it just avalanches everything.
Yes.
And everything is destroyed.
And so that's why I went there.
I totally get that. All right, so I'm going to stick on the offensive line, Paul.
Sure.
I'm going to go with John Michael Schmitz. Mm-hmm. I think especially for an undersized quarterback like Russell Wilson, you cannot afford to have pressure up the middle. That hurts smaller quarterbacks as much as anything else. Go look at how the Saints build their teams with Drew Brees. Their guard play was always fantastic.
Yep. They had to.
It was always very good. Whether it was Carl Nix or whoever else you're talking about in there, their guard play was always great. And center would obviously be included in
Yes.
that. So can John Michael Schmitz put it all together here and become the player the Giants thought they were getting when they drafted him in the second round? It's been too up and down. There's been some injury concerns both years. This is the third year in the league now. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 years for offensive linemen to figure things out, and that's fine. But I want to see more consistent high-level play from him in 2025.
Specifically, I want to see more power out of him.
Yep.
Because there are too many times he's overmatched.
They don't get, he'll stay in front of a guy, but he'll just get.
And then lose the battle.
It's like the sled, where the defensive lineman pushes the sled.
Yeah.
He's the sled. And he just gets slowly worked back into the backfield.
Or even pushed to the side.
Correct.
He's
and then
got
you get
to
a
be
clear
able
path.
to anchor better is really what it comes down to.
And once he gets his hands on him, keep him strong. Don't let the guys detach from him when you get your hands in the right spot.
He frustrates me somewhat, John, because I think from everything we've heard and everything we can see, he doesn't look lost out there. It looks like he knows what to do.
No, I've been told by multiple people.
He just can't finish it.
He's extremely mentally sharp. Like all the
he's on it.
Checks and all that stuff.
But then physically, he doesn't finish enough of those plays.
And look, we talked about him coming out that he wasn't quite on the
smaller
Linderbaum, Bradbury smaller side, but he was on the smaller side. And when I watched him in college, and I said this to a draft time, that was the one thing I worried about with him was some of the bull rush and power stuff. So yeah, I know you're on it too. So and not surprising, guys. What do I always say, folks? The players that make your team really good are guys on their rookie contracts. That's why the 2 guys I picked here were guys heading into their 3rd seasons, their 1st and 2nd round picks from that 2023 draft class. Pardon me. If you want to be good, you got to get high-level play out of your 1st and 2nd round picks.
I'm going to the 3rd round. Jalen Hyatt.
All right. I like it.
Jalen Hyatt is such an X factor for me because, let's face it, he hasn't broken out at all. He has been extremely quiet as a pro during his first 2 seasons. We know what the Giants expected of him when they took him. They expected for sure that he would challenge for a starting job by this point. He has not come close to doing that. And then you were hoping that perhaps not just challenge for a starting job, but become a really exciting player in a starting role. Neither one of those things has happened to this point. He has basically been a very, very quiet pro. If he breaks out this year, and when I say break out, I'm not even talking huge numbers here, John. I'm talking if he's a rotation receiver, just a rotation receiver. That's all. Doesn't even have to be a starter. Doesn't have to beat anybody out. Just be a rotation receiver and catch, 35 balls and average 15 yards a catch. And maybe get 2 or 3 touchdowns in there. That's enough. That's enough to make him impactful on this offense. He can do enough to raise the level of this offense, to make it more dangerous, to make it more explosive. Just be good enough to command some respect from the other team's secondary so that when you're on the field, they do have to be concerned with you. That's all. That's all. And to this point, he's done nothing production-wise that would command respect of the other team's defense. If he steps on the field in the first couple of weeks of the season, based on the tape he has shown in his first 2 NFL seasons, other teams are not going to respect him very much, and he's not going to have much of an impact on the field with or without the ball. But if he can start making some plays, it changes the entire dynamic of what guys have to pay attention to on defense.
Let me ask you this question. What does he have to do or what needs to happen for him to break into the top 3 in terms of snaps per game at wide receiver?
Wow. I don't know that he can do that. I think right now
I agree with you.
He's the 4th, and he's going to stay as the 4th unless somebody gets dinged. Now, that's the problem. See, let's just say for argument's sake, Jalen Hyatt doesn't break out this season. Is the Giants' passing game still good enough to be effective? Can they still move the ball well enough through the air that they can command respect? Well, if Robinson, Slayton, and Neighbors all stay healthy, yeah, they can. And they also have the tight ends and the running backs they can throw to. They can survive without Jalen Hyatt being a weapon. But it would be so much more better for them. The amount of teeth that they can put into a defense, and put some bite into this attack would be so much better if Hyatt, as that 4th guy, could give them some exciting big play production. It would just make a lot of difference.
Nope, I agree with you, Paul. I don't think there's any way to disagree with that, to be honest with you. I guess the only question with that is that, to your point, if he doesn't, if the other guys are good enough, is it going to matter that much?
If they all stay healthy, probably not a ton. Not a ton.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
But there's a much higher upside if he does.
All right. Now, I have a debate here because I didn't have either one of those on my list. So maybe we could go longer than 3 deep now.
I told you we could probably each pick 20 guys.
I take that back. Andrew Thomas was number 6 for me.
Okay.
So that was,
I didn't put them in order. I just wrote down guys.
I know. Well, since we're doing it in terms of listing, I did it in the order I was going to list them. Okay. I wanted to make sure I got certain ones in. So do I want to get creative here, or do I want to? I guess I can combine them. All right. I'm going to go Bobby Okereke.
Okay.
Who I think was really good in his first year here, running all over the place. And last year, with a new defensive coordinator, was not the same. He got hurt late in the year. You need him to come back and be healthy. He's been out there. I think that I'm not worried about that part of it. He talked to us about his back feeling better. Did not have to have surgery. Says he's doing better. Good. Checks all those boxes. Happy, happy, happy. Good, good, good.
Mm-hmm.
But when you talk about this Giants defense, you talk about 2 issues. One, big plays, getting beat over the top. We mentioned that with Deontay Banks. The other thing that Shane Bowen talked about the other day was the run defense, specifically too many explosive runs. And limiting explosive runs has something to do with the defensive line, but I think it has more to do with the linebackers and safeties. Because those are the guys that turn a potential 5-yard run into a 40-yard run. Can, at the second level, these guys get these players down on the ground? So I thought about doing, Shane Bowen as a defensive coordinator and him
Okay, bless you.
Thank you. Figuring things out this year, but sorry,
There's a
I
repeat.
decided instead to go with Okereke here because I just think the middle linebacker, getting everyone in the right spot, getting the gaps filled, being in the right position will go a long way to preventing some of those really long runs that haunted this Giants defense last year. The Giants need a consistent sideline-to-sideline playmaker on the second level of the defense. McFadden's great in the box. Okereke has more athleticism, I think, to kind of get all over the place. So I'm going to go with Okereke here with a little taste of Shane Bowen because his ability to run Bowen's defense and them being on the same page, I think, comes together a little bit
Reasonable.
in terms of trying to shut down those explosive run plays that really hurt the Giants over the last couple of years.
Yeah, no question. Very reasonable. Very reasonable. Now, for my third guy, if you'd like, I'll go defense if we want to split it up.
You can do whatever you want.
Because my other guy who I probably, out of my 6 that I jotted down, the other guy who I'm kind of leaning on here is Theo Johnson, to be honest with you. Because it would be 3 offensive players now if
I don't care.
If I go that way.
Paul,
Well, okay.
I think most of the questions are on the offense.
Okay.
I think that's fine.
So my reason for Theo is this. I think Theo Johnson, if you were to pin down Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll today and ask them, and of course they would not answer this, but if you were to pin them down with truth serum and say, what do you need to get out of Theo Johnson to make this a well-rounded attack that can threaten people enough to be respectable? I think they would say we need more production out of our tight end position. And I'm talking about passing game production, not necessarily blocking. Yes, you need blocking. You guys know how much I love blocking tight ends. But they need, especially in the way the game is being played today and the way that tight ends are becoming the safety valve and key third down contributors, they need Theo Johnson. And I'm not saying he needs to be a 65-catch guy. But Theo Johnson has to catch at least 40 passes this year, John. He needs at least 40 receptions.
Yeah, by 40.
He's got to average about 13 or 14 yards a catch.
Ooh, that's a
Okay?
high number.
But that's what I want out of him, to be truly the type of threat that can command respect. That's what he's got to do. I'm not looking for a guy who catches 40 balls and averages 9.5 yards a grab. That's not going to work for me.
So you want him to be a seam guy?
Yes. He needs to be able to, especially if Hyatt doesn't take that step up, I need Theo Johnson then to be that pseudo fourth target in the offense who can make those plays, get me first downs. Because if Robinson's as shifty as we think he is, and if Neighbors is as talented as we think he is, and if Slayton is as much of a deep threat as we think he is, well, that means Theo Johnson's going to have room to operate, John. And if he's got room to operate, 9.5 yards a catch is not good enough. So that's what I want out of Theo Johnson. And if they can get that kind of production out of him, boy, that's a really big X factor. And it allows room for no one else, a.k.a. Jalen Hyatt, to step up. Because if they can't get that kind of production out of the tight end position in the passing game, then they're going to need another wide receiver to do it.
All right, I'm going to give you my last one. This is a honorable mention, I guess. And then you can give, I think you have a couple that you didn't mention if you want to get to them real quick.
If you want me to.
We can go through these quick. I put Roy Robertson Harris down.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants have been kind of looking for that second defensive tackle next to Dexter Lawrence, but again, this kind of gets wrapped back into the whole run defense thing. Look, it's been a big factor the last 2 years. Can he give you enough consistent play if he ends up being the guy next to Dex? And I know Andre Patterson's very excited about coaching a man of that size with that length.
Yep.
Can he give you that consistent play next to Dexter Lawrence? Or even more importantly, when you want to give Dexter Lawrence his 15 snaps off every game, or 10 snaps, 12 snaps off every game, whatever it is, can him and Nacho hold it down together, right? Can the guys keep that middle of the defense firm enough against the run when Dexter Lawrence is off the field? And I think Roy Robertson Harris will have a lot to do with that. He's new. He's huge. He's tall. He's long. He has all the things Andre Patterson wants out of his defensive lineman. Can he be that reliable guy in that middle of the defense with Dex or when Dex isn't on the field, and that's why he would be my honorable mention here.
That's certainly a reasonable position to look at. I don't think there's any doubt.
All right, who do you have left on yours?
Fortunately, they have some defensive tackles. They have some numbers.
That's why I made that the last thing on my list, because it's an honorable mention.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, I'll just rattle these guys off one real quick. I had Evan Neal on the board, on my page.
Really, he's an X factor, huh?
Because what if he actually wins a job at guard?
So an X factor on the positive side.
Yeah.
Okay, I buy that.
What if he does? What if he shocks the world and becomes one of the 2 starting guards on this team?
No, it's possible. No, that's fair. I have no argument with that.
It's not like
that's
we got Hall of Famers playing guard right now.
I got you.
Okay.
Runyon's obviously going to be a starter. He got signed to a big contract.
Yeah, understood.
Good
but
player.
Anyway, Chris Board, who Gabriel is absolutely enamored with to the high heavens as a special teams demon, and you guys know how I feel about specials and changing field position. So I had him on there, and I also had Amir Smith-Marset, because in the limited...
A lot of questions on the Giants special teams for a unit that you ranked first in the division last week.
Because you said X Factor, right?
I know.
My X Factor for Smith-Marset and for Board is that I'm with the Giants. I'm expecting huge things out of both of those guys.
So if you don't get huge things, you think it really hurts them, is what you're telling me.
That's where I'm going.
I buy that.
I think if they don't get Smith-Marset to be a dynamic kick returner, and if Board does not help this special teams to become a dynamite unit, which is going to help field position, if they don't get those things out of those 2 guys, that's going to be a big blow, especially to the way they planned this season to go. They're counting on that to happen.
All right. You want to get to the calls?
Sure.
Let's do it. 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. Before we do, real quick, make sure you go check out the Giants Huddle podcast. It's on the Giants Podcast Network podcast feed, also the Giants YouTube channel. A lot of good stuff up there last week. We're talking to some of the college coaches of these Giants players that have come into the pros. We have more coming up this week. We have Darius Alexander's head coach Jason Candler from Toledo coming up this week. That was fun. Make sure you go check that out. And then Evan Barnes, who's one of the new beat reporters on the Giants beat.
Newsday.
Very nice guy at a Newsday.
He is a good guy.
I wanted to get him in the mix, so we talked a little football with him last Friday. That's going up. And then we'll have a few more things as we move forward here on the Giants Huddle podcast. Make sure you go check it out. All right, 201-939-4513. A lot of new names on this thing again. So we're going to go Jacob, Tyler, Owen. That's the order they called in. That's the order we're going to take them. Let's go to Jacob in Binghamton. He's going to lead us off today. What's up, Jacob?
Hey, how you doing?
We're good.
Hey, I got just 2 things for you quick. One was just maybe an idea for I really enjoyed the ranking system you guys did last week.
Oh, thank you.
I had just an idea for that where maybe instead of the 1 through 4, like the top on each other, maybe go through each position group and give them a grade, maybe like 1 through 10 or something like that, where my example would be like I'd give the Eagles wide receiver group maybe an 8 or 9, where ours would be like a 6 or 7, and then add it up that way instead.
Okay.
Maybe for next year or
Fair
something
enough.
if you guys wanted to do. And then my other thing was just my X Factor, and you guys kind of nailed every single one that I had. So I think I was going to go with Shane Bowen, actually, as the X Factor for the defense. We have a lot more talent this year.
Yeah.
And I think if we can put it all together, there should be no reason why we don't have a top at least 15 defense. And that's all I got for you guys.
Jacob, if the Giants don't have a top 15, thank you for the call. Awesome stuff. If the Giants do not have a top 15 ranked defense this year, they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's going to be a painful season. They need to be that good.
I'm not saying top 8 or top 7, but I think minimum top half of the league.
I was going to say, at the very least, fringe top 10.
I think
they've got the talent.
That would be a preference.
They got the talent to do it.
I'm with you. Now, it's not going to be easy with the schedule. There's some really talented offensive teams on the schedule, but this defense needs to be the impetus for what makes this team good this year.
Without a doubt.
Has to be.
I mean, look, the one thing that we know, okay, the one thing that we know for sure, while we could talk all about the offensive line and the question marks, because every year that's an annual exercise that we have to go through, what do we know? We know about certain players on defense who have certain levels of talent. Now, you're right. Banks has been inconsistent. He hasn't played up to it, but we know the ability he has. I'll be frank. On offense, I have fewer guys that I am sure of their talent. I'm serious. There are more guys on defense where I think I know what their talent is.
Of course.
And
look at all the money they've spent on defense.
No question. And even the draft choices.
Correct.
So you talk about talent and your evaluation of talent, and then you talk about the intangibles and the production. Well, on offense, the Giants have more projections than production. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I mean, they've been one of the worst offenses in football the last couple of years.
That's it.
Just look at the points scored per game.
So
I'm with you.
It's not fair to put that burden on the defense. It's not unfair at all. In fact, it's required.
They need him. They need him.
Yep.
100% agree with you. Jacob, good call. Appreciate it. Doing the rankings 1 through 10, I get where you're coming from there. Then you're not really doing it straight up like division rankings. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I think that can. I don't know. I'll think about that, Jacob. It's a good point. You get a little more nuance that way, I guess. But how do you judge them 1 through 10? All right, I'll think about that. It's a good question. Let's go to Tyler on Palm Beach. He's up next. Hi, Tyler.
Hey, John. Hey, Paul. How you guys doing?
What's up, dude?
Hey, what's going on? I apologize. I hopped on a little late. Did you guys mention JMS as an X factor this year? I think not only for himself but for the team. This is a huge year for him.
Yes, he was my number 2 after Banks. But tell me why you think he is.
Okay, no, I was just wondering. I know you guys mentioned maybe a week or two ago that Azudu was taking snaps in a position you couldn't reveal, but I was hoping he would get some reps as a center, as a backup. But also, just I haven't talked to you guys since the draft. And
we'll put the brakes on this 1 second for you. No.
Yeah, go ahead.
He is not taking snaps at center.
It wasn't center. Okay, yeah.
Just to be fair, they've got a bunch of centers here, guys who can play center.
Schlotman and Morrissey have taken the center snaps behind. Behind John Michael Schmidt,
and Van Roten obviously is also capable. So they've got so many guys. Let me just get that out of the way for you.
And I have not seen Marcus Bowe there either. It was a guy that
I have
coming
not
out.
either.
Some people thought he could do it. I have not seen him there.
They got enough of guys right now who are taking those reps.
Okay, yeah. You guys mentioned that you weren't going to reveal it, so I was wondering if he was getting into center. But,
good question.
Anyway, I haven't talked to you guys since the draft, and I just think it's been very refreshing all season. This is the Giants. Like, if you look at it, this was really like their plan D, getting Jackson Dart. I would say Stafford, then Rodgers, then Cam Ward, and then they got Jackson Dart. But out of all those plans, I think this is the best one. And I think that this is what next year is going to be the last year of Dable and Shane's contracts. I think regardless, you have to let them play this out, even if they're lame ducks. Get a full year with Jackson Dart. If he gets in late this season, you got to let them, regardless of the record. Obviously, if there's circumstances where it's just brutal, I think that you have to give Shane and Dable next year at least. Let them play out the contract.
Tyler, it's interesting, and I've thought about this. And, Paul, historically about this. Probably you go further back than pretty much anybody on this planet. But I don't remember the Giants allowing a head coach to enter the last year of his contract with 1 year remaining. Do you?
No. As a matter of fact, the Dan Reeves situation is the one that they did do, and it did not go well.
So, really, Dan Reeves, his contract actually expired.
Yes.
So they did not fire him with any time left on his deal.
No,
I did not remember that. That's interesting.
He was allowed to coach his last year without an extension,
and that was his third.
It was his fourth year. It was his fourth year. It's not something the Giants like to do, want to do. It happened to work out for a variety of circumstances that time, and it did not work out well. And so, since that time, they have not allowed that to happen again.
Now, the Cowboys did that with McCarthy. Other teams have done that, but it's not very common.
No, because quite honestly, and I think we saw it that year with Coach Reeves, that would have been 1996 was his last year here. What you get are too many questions, too many distractions, quite frankly, because the media and the fans, and even then, even though there wasn't Twitter and stuff, there was a lot of distractions.
Well, sports talk radio was a big deal back then.
It still was, absolutely. Yeah. And you get that part of it. The other part you get is that the players, whether or not they will ever admit it to you, all right, because they don't want to, they won't, but they also have a little bit less, shall we say, intensity about them, because they're thinking that this coach might be a lame duck and may not come back, and so they're a little less focused, they're a little less intense.
Also easier to tune the coach out if you don't think he's going to be.
Yes,
right?
you're not necessarily following every single direction to a T anymore, because in your back of your mind you keep saying to yourself, well, this guy may not be here, and we're going to be playing for another guy.
And you certainly don't want to sacrifice for that person if he might not be here past that year, right?
No, human nature kind of puts that little bit of doubt in the back of your head. So the Giants have always said, like, we don't want to do that. The one time that it happened, it did not go well.
Well, Tyler, I think it's a good question because your reasoning is sound on the way you're thinking about it. I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't remember even having John Mara answer a question about that. To be honest with you, I don't know what he thinks about it.
No, I don't think anybody has asked that of him, but also because the Giants' procedure here, again, they followed their procedure 90-something% of the time.
Go ahead,
It was
Tyler.
only one time that they didn't.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was just going to say, they're at a weird point where they're not going to extend either one of these guys. They started off hot, and then we've hit the lulls. But now you got this young quarterback. You got Dable. So, this is his chance. This is his time to show John Mara that, this guy can be transformed into hopefully, even 55% of Josh Allen. But my last point, I just want to mention that I do think that the Giants is very optimistic now. They have a ton of talent, and it's finally time you have to compete this year. They have a ton of talent, and it's time to compete. The only thing I'm a little worried about is the wide receiver depth. If, I'm knocking on wood right now, if Neighbors is to have an injury, it's kind of a tough room. Not a tough room, but who scares you? If you're a defense, who scares you out there? So I'm kind of hoping for full health this year in the wide receiver room, but I do think that might be one of the positions that the Giants, didn't target as well in the offseason.
Tyler, appreciate the call.
Yeah.
Good stuff, and I don't disagree with you. That'll be a good preview when we do our players you can least afford to lose. The guy you mentioned is probably going to be number one on my list.
This goes back to a conversation we had earlier when I mentioned Jalen Hyatt, because if the Giants' starting receiving core and tight end core is healthy, Jalen Hyatt isn't required to necessarily step up. You'd like it, but if any of those guys goes down in that receivers room and Hyatt's number 4, he has to step up. He has to.
And it goes back to the point that I made when we talked about where the Giants still have the most work to do in terms of long-term roster construction. I think we had that show sometime middle of May, end of May, something like that. And the big one for me was a number 2 wide receiver.
Right.
Darius Slayton just got paid, but if you look at his contract, that's a contract of a number 3 wide receiver. I mean, look what Tutu Atwell just got paid. He basically got the same amount of money that Darius Slayton did. Is Tutu Atwell a 2?
No,
he's not.
No.
Look, and that's nothing against Darius Slayton. He's a really good player. He's been awesome here. I love Darius. He's terrific. He's
pro's pro.
A really good player. But you don't have a guy that's making $20 million a year as your number 2, right? And you don't have a rookie yet or a guy in a rookie contract that has stepped up to the point where they've given you number 2 wide receiver production. So then, to your point, Owen, and again, I'm going to end up repeating myself in 2 weeks when we do the guys you can't afford to lose show. But Tyler, sorry, not Owen. Owen's up next. Tyler. Yeah. I mean, even though you have a bunch of guys that I think have talent and ability and skill, there's nobody that other teams have to send an extra guy after. It's if you take Neighbors out of that room, it might be the worst room in the league.
Ultimately, I remember Parcells used to talk about this all the time. You have to earn the respect of the other team's unit. And to your point, what you just said a minute ago, Neighbors gets hurt. Who on this receiving core is going to command the respect of the other team that they're going to be distracted and they're going to be worried about that guy?
And again,
there's nobody. I'm sorry. That's not to disrespect any of them.
And I want to make it very clear we're not disrespecting those guys.
We
think Darius Slayton is a very good NFL wide receiver. Wanda Robinson's awesome. He's a really good slot. And we know about Jalen Hyatt's speed. But we just haven't seen. I mean, there's a reason when the Giants were picking 6th overall that year that we all thought they were going to pick Malik Neighbors. And it was necessary for them to pick Malik Neighbors.
Let me just go back to my name that I use for these guys, headache players.
Yeah.
There's no headache player on this offense outside of Malik Neighbors right now.
No.
There's not.
No.
Somebody's going to have to step up and become that guy. And it doesn't necessarily mean they have the gaudiest numbers. What it means is they make the key plays, the most impactful plays at the most critical times. That's how you become a headache player.
And you make explosive plays. You know, a headache player.
No question.
Maybe you're a guy that only catches 50 balls, but if you're averaging 17 yards a catch, you're a headache player.
Quite honestly, Mario Manningham was one of those kinds of guys.
Go back to did DeSean Jackson ever have 80 catches in a year?
No.
Maybe he got over once or twice, but he wasn't
Possibly.
a 100 catch a year guy.
Yeah, I know he wasn't.
But was DeSean Jackson a headache player?
Ask Belichick, though, about Manningham.
Yeah.
Turned out to be a big headache for him.
So, yes, Tyler, we agree. I think you make a good point. And again, I think if they didn't trade that pick to go get Dart, that could have very easily been used on a wide receiver in the draft. I think that's very possible.
Could have been.
And I'll say this too. You know, you talk about the future and predicting what's going to happen. First of all, the NFL is weird. Weird things happen. Who knows what we're going to be looking at come next February or next January, middle of the month when the season ends. Hopefully February.
Yes.
You never know. You've no idea. But let me just, and you talked about how, you know, Dart was, you know, plan B or C or whatever, and that's what they got to. Which, by the way, I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I'm not disagreeing with that analysis.
Right.
I think you're right about that. And I think we're all optimistic of what Jackson can be. We all like Jackson. He's great. But when you pick a quarterback at pick 26?
25.
25, thank you. When you pick him at 25, that's not a guy you necessarily have to be married to for 3 years. Like, it's not, oh my God, we use so much draft capital on this guy, we can't afford to get off of him.
Oh,
like,
right.
If you get to next year, and this is me knocking on wood, and please don't let this be the case, and I don't think it's going to be the case. If you're somehow picking in the top 2 or 3 again, and a guy's sitting there that you think has the talent to be, if a guy's sitting there that you think had the talent to be picked where the Giants picked Abdul Carter this year, I don't think you could pass on that player. If you have a quarterback on the board next year that is a legitimate top 5 grade on your board, regardless of position.
And you're picking where?
You're picking a place where you can get that player.
Oh, wow.
I don't think you can pass on that player, is my point. And by the way, I've been consistent about that the whole time.
I know you have.
Before the Giants drafted a player this year, so this is not reflective of my opinions of Jackson Dart. I want to be abundantly clear about that.
You're in favor of taking swings. That's
I
what you
said that before the Giants even made a pick this year. That if the guy doesn't work out, fine. Pick one the next year. So I'm being consistent in my philosophy. This is not about Jackson. I'm being very clear about that. Please don't aggregate me. But being very clear, I think Jackson has a chance to be a really good NFL player. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he has to be your guy for the next 3 or 4 years. Ideally, yes. Does he have to be? No. Right. And John Mara, by the way, will not step in and make him be that guy either.
No, he will not. That's not the way this
I just wanted to make
works.
sure I got that out.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fair. I think that there are certain sets of circumstances that can make you feel strongly one way or the other. To me, it's just way, way too early to even think about that hypothetical, but I understand your point.
My point is that you shouldn't rule it out.
Understood.
Either way.
Understood.
I think all your options are open, one way or the other, at this point, because we haven't seen anything. Now, I might have a different opinion when we get to December, and if Jackson's been on the field and he looks great, then my mind's going to change. But we're not there yet. So my options, it's completely open. I'm not whatever happens next offseason happens next offseason. Let's just worry about getting wins.
That's like what I said to Len the other day. He was already talking about 2027. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm talking about this year first.
Paul might not be around in 2027. My gosh.
Don't say that.
No, I'm just kidding. None of us might be around in 2027 the way the world's going. Trust me. I wasn't reflective of you specifically.
Okay.
Just of the way everything's going. All right. Let's go to Owen in Texas. He's up next. Owen, what's happening, man?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Very appreciate the time. I've been listening to y'all since I was 14 or 15.
And how old are you now, Owen?
I'm 28,
oh,
so
wow.
y'all have been kind of a big part of my life.
How about
for
that?
Half of
Well,
my
thanks for
life.
sticking with us.
Now you're making me feel old, Owen, but I appreciate the kind words.
Well, that makes the two of us then. But no, I mean, y'all weirdly, y'all mean a lot to me. I've been listening to y'all pretty consistently for that entire chunk of time, and I've learned a lot from y'all.
Thank you, Owen. Appreciate that.
And so,
It means a lot. It really does. I'm serious.
Very cool.
No, 100%. Just, show gratitude. I've got weird questions because all we can kind of do right now is speculate on what's going to happen.
I love
There's
weird
not, like-
questions. Bring the weird questions. It's a perfect June of the NFL calendar. I want all the weird questions. Bring them.
Right.
Fantastic. So I was born in 96. I say I kind of became a fan the year before the Giants won in 07.
Okay.
But I was 6 when the merger, or not the merger, but when the Texans became a team and the realignment happened.
Yeah.
I hate the Cowboys. I hate the Eagles. I hate the now whatever Washington football team. I don't know what we want to call them anymore. But I don't have any hatred for the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay.
And I don't really know what that time was like or what the perception of that was from like the Giants' perspective. Did we hate them the same amount as we hate the Eagles?
Oh, and here's the problem with that. The Arizona Cardinals were so consistently terrible. You never really had the ability. I'm not trying to be funny. Like, I was born in 81, so I sort of started following the NFL in earnest in like 1990, let's say, right, when I was 9. I knew it was my first Super Bowl memory, my dad went to the 86 Super Bowl. He got tickets to his company. He worked for JCPenney then, and he ended up going to the 86 Super Bowl. I just remember him being all excited about going to the game. I remember watching the Boomer, the Montana to John Taylor slant that beat the Bengals because I loved Ickey Woods, because I liked the Ickey Shuffle.
Wow.
When I was like
Sure.
7 years old, and I wanted the Bengals to win, and I already then did not like the 49ers for whatever reason. But like, you first really start following the league when you get a little older. To your point, like you did it when you were 9 or 10. I was around the same. I was like 1990. You start playing like Tech Mobile and stuff like that, and it kind of gets you into the game and all that. The Cardinals were always terrible. I mean, they had that one little run when Jake Plummer came into the league, right? I think didn't they beat the Cowboys in the playoffs one year, and that was like a huge upset. I think.
I don't remember that
but
one.
they were never good. So you never got that animosity for the Cardinals because, quite frankly, they never earned that animosity because they were never really a big challenge to you in the division, or at least that was my take on it, Paul.
Well, you have to understand, I go back further than you guys, and I know when they were the St. Louis Cardinals.
Weren't they the Boston Braves before?
Okay.
That? Oh no, that's baseball. I'm sorry. Just kidding.
Yeah. When they were the St. Louis Cardinals and they played at Busch Stadium where the baseball St. Louis Cardinals played, Jim Hart was a perennial Pro Bowl candidated quarterback.
When did they move from St. Louis to Arizona?
Oh, my goodness.
Or it was in Phoenix, by the way. They were the Phoenix Cardinals and not the Arizona
I want to
Cardinals.
say that was late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it must have been late 80s because I don't remember them in St. Louis.
Let me put it to you this way. Otis Anderson was an NFL Rookie of the Year at running back for the old St. Louis Cardinals. Later on, he became a Giant, obviously was a comeback player of the year, ran for 1,000 yards, and won a Super Bowl MVP.
1988.
It was 88.
Yeah, so I was 7. That's why I don't remember.
So I was right there in that ballpark. Those old St. Louis Cardinals with Roy Green, who was a two-way player, by the way. Okay, Roy Green was a kick returner, he was a wide receiver, and he was a cornerback. Devastating speed. He was probably before Champ Bailey, he was the last guy who was really effective at trying both ways. That St. Louis Cardinals team was in the Giants division.
Well, Deion Sanders you had in between there, too.
Well, that's right.
Correct.
I'm forgetting Deion. My bad. So St. Louis Cardinals were part of this division with Washington, Dallas, Philadelphia, and New York. St. Louis was in this division. So in those days, there was some dislike for the Cardinals. When they moved and they went out to Arizona, in fact, they started out by playing at Arizona State University when they first moved out there. That's the ballpark.
And they were the
used.
Phoenix Cardinals until they became the Arizona Cardinals
Correct.
in 1994. So the Phoenix Cardinals from 89 to 93. Or
So-
88 to 93, pardon me.
And so, that's where all of a sudden it was like, oh, they're the Cardinals. All right, whatever. But when they were the St. Louis Cardinals, and they were pretty good. Jim Hart, like I said, was their quarterback.
Yeah, I don't remember Jim Hart before my time.
I'm just saying that, don't discount the Cardinals. There was a time when the Cardinals were not well liked by Giants fans,
But
never to
easily-
the extent to the other teams.
Then they're the three, right? Correct.
That they were always the least emotional of the division rivals.
Interesting. Okay.
Now,
I have
just
two other
just so you get a
questions.
feel for it, from I'm gonna go through it here for you. Starting in the year, let's say 1988, when they moved. These were their win totals: 7, 5, 5, 4, 4, 7, 8, 4, 7, 4, 9, 6, 3, 7, 5, 4, 6, 5, 5, 8, 5. So you did not get one 10-win season in their first 20 years playing in Arizona.
Yeah.
Which is why the rivalry wasn't what it was supposed to be.
And the Bidwell ownership has always taken a lot of bows and arrows from the fans. In fact, to be honest, I'll give you one other side note, and I know it's a little off the topic, and I apologize for taking your time. But Otis Anderson, because his best years, even though he had a couple of good years with the Giants, his best years were with the St. Louis Cardinals. He has trouble gaining some traction in the Hall of Fame voting because he needs to be represented by a Cardinals media rep. Well, the Cardinals media rep is not from St. Louis. The Cardinals media rep right now is from Arizona. So he has absolutely no wherewithal to add extra traction to Otis Anderson's Hall of Fame candidacy. And this hurts him every single year.
What are the weird questions you have, Owen? What's your next one? It's a good question, by the way.
One, Steve Tisch. He became an owner in 2005, I believe. Did you see a change in the organization after going through having the Mara family owned since, I believe, the beginning of the franchise, if not pretty close to the beginning of the franchise? Was there a change at all when Steve Tisch became part owner, or is there just kind of everything kept going without any
I think
issues
it's
or
fair to
anything?
say, Owen, from a football perspective, there probably wasn't a ton of change, but from a business perspective,
Right.
the Tisch family definitely modernized a lot of the ways the Giants did business.
Sure. And by the way, that was after the 2000 season.
Yeah, but Steve
Oh.
didn't step into ownership until his father passed, obviously, right?
That
Right,
makes
correct,
sense.
correct,
Yes,
correct,
yes,
correct,
yes.
correct.
So that would have been 2005 to his point, right?
Yeah, actually, in 97, okay, no, let's see, 91, I apologize, 1991, after the Giants won their second Super Bowl, and Parcells had stepped down because of heart issues and physically, and then he had some other things that were going on. He just decided that, he was going to step away. At that point is when the Tisch family came in and bought half of the team. That was spring of 91. Is that it?
Yeah, I have one more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine. Wellington Mara, and I heard this, and it changed the way I think about football a lot. And I heard this, I believe, from Mr. Dottino at one of the 14 years I've been listening out, with like the concept of how Wellington Mara looked at positional value and how you have to have a good quarterback, a good left tackle, and a good cornerback to have like a successful team. I may be botching how that looks, but that's what I recall. And if that's not the case, please educate me. But if it is, do you think that's expanded, of like that tier of value has expanded as the league has gone on to consider like wide receiver or I imagine not safety, but defensive tackle, especially right now? We've seen such like an influx of top defensive tackles being more dominant than almost outside edge rushers to some extent.
No, Owen, good question. Appreciate the call, man. We got brought to 1:30. We got to run. You obviously, I did not interact with Mr. Mara, Wellington Mara at all.
Yeah.
That was before my time, so I think you're the one. that
It was
answered
it was an old-fashioned mantra from back in the late 70s, early 80s. The old-fashioned mantra, which is now adopted by everybody, is that your four core components to build a potential playoff team or contender are your quarterback, your left tackle, your cover corner, and your pass rusher. Those are the four components you had to have. Over the years, now everybody knows it. But back in the day, that was not necessarily a thing on the street. It was something that only core NFL people kind of believed, and they didn't talk about it very much.
Let me ask you something then, Paul. would you replace one of those 4 with something else today?
Well, I think what happens is as the football cycles into different emphases on different styles of play, you have to now make an adjustment.
Well,
to that
I'm
a
saying,
little bit.
if you were building a team and you were starting a team in 2025, would those be your top 4 ones, or would you have something else jump in front of one of those 4?
I wouldn't change and jump, but I would probably add.
Okay, I would put wide receiver ahead of corner.
Well, it wasn't. It was just the core 4. It wasn't I'm using core 4. They never called it.
Well,
that.
my point is that
It was
I would
just your
put
4
a
basic.
I would put a
and there
wide,
was no order.
I would put a wide receiver into my core 4 before I put a corner into my core 4.
The only thing that was mandatory was that the quarterback was 1, and the
course.
other 3 were the other. I would simply say,
And I think pass rush and offensive tackle are still 2 and 3 in whatever order you want
yeah.
to put them in. But I would then put wide receiver 4, I think.
I would add a 5th as opposed to taking somebody out or
Okay.
moving somebody. I would add a 5th. I believe that absolutely right now you have to have somebody on the defensive interior, whether it's a DT, a nose tackle, or a middle linebacker, who can dictate your defensive scheme against the offense and force them to deal with something.
Don't you but
I think it's pretty important now.
First of all,
you got to be strong up the middle.
I do not disagree with that at all, and I have no problem adding that to the 5-man Mount Rushmore. In that Mount Rushmore, even if you check all 5 of those boxes, you don't have a headache player on offense.
Agreed.
That's a problem.
It's not a great situation. but I will tell you, if you don't have the ability to be strong up the middle
I
and
agree with
dictate
you.
something
I agree with
defensively, then it doesn't matter what the offense has on the other side. They're going to be able to move the ball against you.
By the way, so I was at a local restaurant getting a delicious hot dog the other day. Pearson knows where I went. It's
Okay.
delicious. And I was sitting there waiting for something, and somebody came up. He said, I don't want to whatever. But he said, just want to say, you guys, especially considering that, you guys, NY, you're paid by the team, thought you guys do a really nice job of having really good, fair, honest conversations and tackle some tough stuff, despite the fact that, obviously, we're at the Giants facility and we work for the team. He just said, name was John. He had very kind words for us.
Oh,
I
that's
just wanted
cool.
to share those on there. I would say
That's
thank
awfully
you.
nice.
I said thank you to him in person. I thought it's always nice when you guys, obviously I'm out and about with the kids a lot. They were out in the car waiting for me to get them their hot dogs with the wife. And
Was ice cream included?
later in the day.
Good. I'm glad.
Not for lunch though. Not for
Okay,
lunch.
that's fine.
But yeah. So my point is that it's always nice when you guys come up and you say hi. I always like that.
No, it's very cool.
It's always fun.
And
I always
we
appreciate
appreciate the folks who have been with us a long time.
Yes, like Owen.
those folks really make us happy.
And I wasn't even going to say anything about it, but the John who I spoke to at the establishment basically said the same thing. He's been listening to watching us for a long time, and
That's cool.
Owen's statement made me think of that. So I just wanted to say what's up.
Very
and,
nice.
and I appreciate that. All right, folks, don't forget, if you want a Giants season ticket membership, draft, free agency, we know what the schedule is. Some great home opponents. Take your fans to the next level with the Giants season ticket membership. Catch all the action at MetLife Stadium with an exciting home schedule on the horizon. With the membership, you'll also stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days, with exclusive member access and benefits. To learn more about a New York Giants season ticket membership, visit giants.com/tickets. And, of course, you can find all of our content on the Giants app, Giants YouTube channel, or Giants TV, which you can find on all of those streaming TVs and smart TVs, Amazon Fire Sticks, Apple TVs.
I got a couple
all
of
that
those
stuff.
smart TVs,
You
John.
guys can go
How
check
about that,
out.
huh?
Do you know how to work the smart
Yes,
TVs?
I do.
You sure?
I absolutely do. I use it all the time. It's awesome.
You access apps on them.
Not only do I do that, I merge my phone with my smart TV.
Really?
It helps me watch important programming.
Important programming that you obviously have subscribed and paid for.
Absolutely.
Okay. I thought. Perfect. Good. All right. Thanks for being with us on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Tomorrow, Paul and I are going to do something fun tomorrow. We're going to do our, I think tomorrow's the NFC East player draft, I said, right?
I believe that's what you
said.
said.
So we did this before, so we're going to basically take the 4 teams in the NFC. Paul and I will draft 11-man teams on offense and defense all together. Mm-hmm. It's going to take up most of the show. I'm warning you, so we might not get to your calls tomorrow. If we don't, that's okay. And then Pearson and Johnny Mack will get to judge which one of us came up with the better roster. So that's what we're doing tomorrow. Stay tuned. It should be fun. What?
I think you've probably already greased their palms to make sure you win.
Paul, I don't have to grease anybody's palms to be
Okay. That's all right. I get you.
All right. Thanks for joining us on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. Bidding you farewell from our podcast studio, presented by Hackensack. Meridian Health keep getting better. For Paul Dottino, Johnny Mac, Pearson Butler, I'm John Schmeelk. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.